It's 5:30, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight, and also like to thank Vice Mayor Hayes for filling in the last 2 weeks while I was out of town. Just one of those things, a brain not working well tonight. But I do appreciate you stepping in while we were gone, so thank you. First thing I would like to do is have us all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is the adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, have you had a chance to review the agenda and take note that we did receive a revised agenda that was published online that added 4 items at the end of items for commission action. So have you reviewed and have any modifications or changes in the agenda?
I do not.
I do not.
Okay, with that, then I'll accept a motion concerning the agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Next item, appointments. The tree board, we have 2 terms expired, 1 eligible for reappointment. I would like to reappoint Twyla Hawthorne and also then appoint Tim Haynes to the tree board. So do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. The Housing Authority, there's been 1 resignation. We'll have an unexpired term that will end April 11th, 2023. Applications are due by 5 p.m. September 4th, 2020. The application is available online or at City Hall. Next item is the Plumbing Board. We have 1 term expired. The term is being held by Paul Lemon, and he has expressed a desire to be reappointed, so I will reappoint Paul Lemon. So that's the motion is that Paul Lemon be reappointed. Do I have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Next item is presentations. We have a presentation by Labette Health regarding the final update on the 2016 Economic Development Grant and request for funds to expand the Independence Health Care Center.
Commissioner Bryan is on his way. He got tied up. Can we skip over and come right back to this?
Okay. With that, then we will go ahead and we'll come back to item A and we'll go to item B, presentation of the 2019 audit. Lacey, are you going? Oh, okay. Will you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Kyle Stobush, and I'm with Jared Gilmore Phillips, and we're the ones that performed your audit this year. So I'm going to walk you through and kind of point out some things that I think might be important to you, and just kind of walk you through the audit report that you have in front of you. So at the front of your audit report, you've got some letters in there. We're going to skip past those and actually come back to those at the end. So the first thing we'll start with is page 1 of the audit report. And so pages 1 through 3 are the actual audit report. In this document, this is the only thing that actually belongs to us as auditors. Everything else in here is your information, your data. We just use it to disclose it in the manner prescribed by KMAG. So this first paragraph talks about what we audited, the accompanying fund summary statement of regulatory basis receipts, expenditures, and unencumbered cash balances of the city for the year ended December 31st, 2019. That next paragraph kind of touches on what I just mentioned about management's responsibility for the financial statement. So it's basically saying that management's responsible for giving us all the information, making sure the numbers are accurate that are provided to us, and just that they're taking responsibility for all the information within this audit. Those next three paragraphs touch on our responsibilities as auditors. We audit according to generally accepted auditing standards, and we also audit according to the KMAG, the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. So this is a little different than generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, if you're familiar with that term, where the KMAG is mostly a cash basis form of accounting with a little bit of focus on accounts payable. So to try to put those expenses that maybe we don't get billed for or paid until 2020 back into 2019, the actual period that those expenses incurred. So that's kind of the special caveat of KMAG. That those next two paragraphs at the bottom of page 1 and then at the top of page 2 kind of touch on that. So because it's not GAAP accounting, we have to actually issue an adverse opinion on that because there'd be large material differences between the GAAP accounting financial statements and the KMAG financial statements. Most of this dealing with things such as accounts receivable for like our utilities, as well as liabilities that we would have, additional liabilities that would be on the books if it was a GAAP financial statement audit. That next paragraph down, the unmodified opinion on regulatory basis of accounting, is probably the most important in this audit report. That's stating that we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the best opinion the city can receive. It means that we believe that the numbers in here are a materially accurate representation of what happened during the year for the city. Finally, those last two paragraphs on page 2 and kind of extending to page 3 touch on the supplementary information that is required by KMAG that's in the back of this audit. It just kind of discloses what it is, says that it's in the audit, and then that last paragraph kind of also touches on that we include the prior year's audit information as well. So if you turn to page 4 and 5, this is kind of what I like to call the meat and potatoes of the audit. It's just a good summary of everything that happened during the year for each fund within the city, and kind of gives you an overall cash position of the city. So that first column, the beginning unencumbered cash balances, sometimes called our cash carryover for budget purposes, it kind of lists where we started out from the prior year. The next column would be our canceled encumbrances. If we would have encumbered any funds in the prior year and then maybe we didn't end up paying as much as we encumbered, you would see that difference in this column here. That next column is our receipts, that money we brought in, the actual cash that walked through the door. That next column is our expenditures, our funds that we dispersed. And then finally we get to our ending unencumbered cash balance. For KMAG, there is a 10-page checklist that we're also required to kind of review. It contains various statutes that the city has to follow. One of those is that each fund in this column ends in a positive balance. If you go to the bottom of page 4 and kind of the top of page 5, you see we have a couple funds that actually have a negative fund balance. So that is allowable for these certain funds because these are kind of our project funds. So we may have spent the money, but we're waiting to get reimbursed by maybe a grant. So we had to send the expenditures in order to get reimbursed. So those negative funds are allowed per the KMAG. Next, we get into that accounts payable column. That thing I mentioned where, maybe we didn't get the bill till 2020 that were for 2019 services. So that lists out our accounts payable for the year. And then finally, we get to our ending cash balance by fund over there on the far right. And at the bottom of page 5, you can see that this ties out to our actual cash on hand. So with the city, you can see that we had $13.7 million at year end of actual cash, but we also had to remove a little bit for agency funds. So that's funds that the city holds, but they don't necessarily belong to the city. Things such as our fire insurance proceeds that flow through the city. And then you can see that number ties to the bottom to the total on statement 1 on page 5. So if you turn to page 6, we get into the footnotes of the audit. This first footnote number 1, that kind of spans pages 6 through 9, is kind of a cookie cutter footnote that you would see in all KMAG audits. That first page kind of gives some introductory information about the city, as well as some related municipal entities that the city has, such as the library and the housing authority. And then it just kind of talks about some of the special things with KMAG. I do want to point out that at the bottom of page 8, we do disclose that the two funds that the city amended the budget for during the year, the airport fund and the special use sales tax fund. On page 9, we get into footnote number 2, which is our stewardship, compliance, and accountability. This footnote deals with that 10-page checklist for KMAG. So if we have any issues with that, you'll see that in this paragraph. So that first paragraph touches on the statement 1, which we just reviewed. It talks about how we're supposed to have that positive cash balance and just discloses that, those two funds that we have a negative fund cash balance for are acceptable. It also talks about our budget. We're not supposed to spend more than we budget. So at the bottom, you can see we did disclose that we have 4 funds that we did expend more than we budgeted, and we'll see that on an additional schedule in the supplementary information in the back of this audit. That next disclosure talks about the Treasury Report. So since the city is a second-class city, they're required to disclose a Treasury Report and publish it in the newspaper within 30 days of the end of each quarter during the year. So as you can see, during the year, one of those 4 quarterly statements was not published within that 30-day requirement. That next issue with the KMAG that we found was that for our bond payments, you're required to pay those to the state 20 days prior than they're actually due. So as you can see, we did have one bond payment where we were only 15 days prior instead of the 20 days prior. Footnote number 3 on page 10 gets into our deposits and investments. Those first 4 paragraphs just kind of touch on some general state statutes, things such as that we're required to hold our money in the bank within our county or an adjoining county, things that we're kind of limited on where we can invest our money. We can't go putting our money in the stock market just because our citizens depend on that money for the functioning of the city. So that's a risky investment as far as using that money for. Also discusses about how we need to have our money adequately secured at year-end with FDIC coverage, as well as using things such as pledged securities or other forms to cover that additional amount over that FDIC coverage amount. So that last paragraph at the bottom of page 10 actually gets into some city information. As you can see, during the year, we ended with $13.7 million. And the bank balance was $18.6 million. Now you see that's a large difference. Well, a lot of this is due to the Public Housing Authority, since their funds are commingled with the cities and they have a separate audit. We split those out for audit purposes, so that's why there's such a large difference between those two numbers. So of that bank balance, a little over $750,000 was covered by FDIC insurance, and $15.1 million was collateralized with pledged security. And the remaining $2.7 million of that amount was covered with a repurchase agreement. So we met that KMAG requirement that we were adequately secured at year end. On page 11, and it spans to page 13, we get into our long-term debt schedule. This is really good for budgeting purposes. Not necessarily this first page, this just gives us an activities during the year, but the next 2 pages, they give us our future payment. So as you can see, during the year, we added some additional debt during the year. We added a lease for a fire truck, as well as we drew down some money on our water supply loan for our water treatment plant, and then we also defeased some bonds, refinanced them. And at the end of the year, you can see our debt actually went up, and most of this is due just to the loan drawdowns as well as the new lease. Now on page 12 and 13, we get into that future payment schedule that I mentioned that is really good for budgeting purposes. It just gives you an idea of kind of what future payments to expect, gives you an idea of when those bonds and those capital leases and loans will come due. I encourage you to kind of look through that as well as and think about it every year when you come back to budgeting. Then we get into page 14, footnote number 5, which goes on 14 and 15. This is our capital lease obligations. All of these are listed in that long-term debt schedule back on page 11. This just breaks them down and gives you more detail as far as what makes up those payments. So we've got our total amount that's owed for the various future years that we owe on the payments for those leases. And then we break out any imputed interest built into those payments to give us the actual principal amount that we're paying on those leases. I encourage you to kind of look through that and see all the different leases that we have, as well as kind of tie back to when those will eventually be paid off. Footnote number 6 touches on our industrial revenue bond. So the city is able to issue some bonds, provide funding for various businesses that want to come to the area. And the city is not due or not obligated to pay those bonds. We're just kind of the go-between. We kind of collect the money from those entities, and then that money is issued out to pay those bonds. So we're just required to disclose that in the footnote. And as you can see, we have a little under $21 million worth of industrial revenue bonds at the end of the year. Footnote number 7 is our operating leases. These are equipment that we're going to be renting, but we don't necessarily own. So as you can see, the city, the only one that they have is a postage machine, which we paid a little bit over $3,500 for during the year. And then down below, we just list out the future payments that are built into the agreement that we signed for that postage machine. Footnote number 8 is our defined benefit pension plan, or as I like to refer to it, our CAPERS footnote. These first 2 paragraphs just kind of give general information about CAPERS, what it is, kind of makes you familiar with it. That third paragraph finally touches on some information pertaining to the city. So as you can see, the rate during the year was 8.89%, and then an additional 1% for the death and disability insurance. So during the year, the city remitted $507,000 on behalf of our employees for their CAPERS contributions. That next paragraph is probably one of the scariest in this audit. That's our net pension liability. So this is the amount that the city would owe if CAPERS were to quit being funded, and we would have to fund our current employees' retirement obligations in the future. Obviously, we don't ever foresee that happening, but due to the fact that CAPERS is underfunded, we are required to disclose this amount. So as you can see, the city's portion was $3.8 million. Obviously, if this was GAAP financials, this would be shown up on the financial statement, but since it's KMAG, we're only required to disclose it. We don't ever have to put it on the financial statements themselves as a liability. Footnote number 9 on page 17 is our capital project. These are kind of our large, out-of-the-ordinary projects that we would have year to year. So that first column kind of lists out what that project name is. Then we get into the authorized amount, and this can vary from amounts authorized from the commission to the amounts authorized through bond proceeds, things of that nature. Then we list out the actual amount totally expended to the point up to this year on that project. And then we list out the completion percent, or the completion projected date, as well as if the project's been completed. So as you can see, we had completed 3 projects during the year. We have 8 that will be potentially completed in the next year, and then 3 more scheduled to be completed in 2021. Footnote number 10 is our other long-term obligations from operations. So that first paragraph touches on that 1% death and disability insurance that I mentioned back in footnote number 8 with the CAPERS. The next section that starts on page 17 and flows to page 18 talks about the city's vacation and sick leave policy. So since our employees earn and accrue vacation, and they can carry that over and be paid out that when they're terminated or retired, we're required to estimate what that actual liability would be to the city if all our employees were to retire. Now, obviously, they're not all going to retire at the same time, but it is a large number, so for KMAG, we're required to disclose that. So in that first paragraph on page 18, under that bulleted list, you can see that amount was a little under $195,000. Down below, we talked about how the city participates in COBRA. These are just general statements that you would see in all KMAG audits. Footnote number 11 is another one of those kind of cookie cutter footnotes, just for the sake that the city mitigates their risk through the purchase of insurance, like most municipalities throughout the state. And we talk about how that we participate in the Kansas Municipal Insurance Trust for our workers' comp insurance. Footnote number 12 is our interfund transfers. These are going to be all our fund transfers during the year. So we list those out, as well as our statutory authority for each of those transfers. This is another one of those KMAG checklist things to ensure that each transfer actually has a statute to rely on for that transfer. And then finally, we list out the amount. On page 19, I do want to point out that we had some residual transfers. So these residual transfers are when we're closing one fund and moving that money to the other. Finally, footnote number 13 is our subsequent events. If anything would have happened so far in 2020, I know what hasn't happened in 2020, but if anything would have happened, this is where we would have disclosed it. As you can see, the only thing that we've disclosed is just potential effects of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Obviously, we can't kind of project what kind of impact this could have as far as our sales tax dollars, things of that nature. So we just felt it was necessary to disclose this in the audit. Finally, we get into our supplementary information on page 20. So everything behind this is a schedule. Everything in front of this was a statement. So the schedule 1 is that budgetary comparison schedule I mentioned. That first column is our total certified budget. The next is our adjustments for qualifying budget credits. These are things such as reimbursed expenses, debt proceeds, things of that nature. And we add those 2 columns to get to our total certified budget. Then we get to our expenditures charged to each fund for the year. And finally over there we get to our variance column. So this is the one area where a negative number is actually a good thing. So as you can see, we have those 4 positive numbers where we overspent on the budget. On the next page, we get into our individual fund schedule. This is Schedule 2, page 21. And I'm not going to sit here and go through each one of these with you. I encourage you to glance through them. I'll just kind of point out some general things that you will see in most of them. So that first column is going to be the amounts from 2018 that we brought forward from the audit. That next column is our actual amount of receipts or expenditures. And then we get into the budgeted amount by line as well as that variance. So this is a really good tool to kind of see where we budgeted, how we came out, kind of gives you an idea of how effective we were in our budgeting, and just kind of breaks down some areas, points out in more detail some areas where we may have collected more money, spent more money, etc. I do want to point out that that first line on page 21, the ad valorem property tax, that budgeted amount would be what we levied for taxes, and we actually collected the 1.5 million. So as you can see, we didn't quite collect all of the money. We were about $140,000 short as far as our ad valorem taxes. That next line down is our delinquent taxes, those taxes that haven't been paid. So you can see that's about, this 58,000 would be about half of that 140. So in the past, it looks like we've been able to collect, most of those taxes over the years as we've gone forward. I encourage you once again to glance through each of these individual fund schedules. I'm going to just kind of review them for your knowledge. Finally, at the back, we get into Schedule 3. It's the very last page of the audit. These are those agency funds that I talked about, those things that the city's holding the money, but it doesn't necessarily belong to the city. So, for example, we have the fire insurance proceeds, alcohol investment, and the first aid training. Now I'm going to go back and touch on those letters that were at the front of your audit. It's just one stapled packet. The first letter is called the presentation letter. It has the date at the top.
Excuse
this
me.
letter just kind of is, if we would have had any issues with the audit as far as getting information, having any disagreements with management, things of that nature, we would have come to the board orally with those issues. As we didn't come to the commission with any issues.
Excuse me,
obviously
Kyle.
we didn't have any, so
Kyle?
everything went well, even though
Kyle?
with the COVID-19, we
Kyle?
performed a lot of the
Maybe if we all
audits,
say it
so
together.
that
Kyle.
Kyle.
things for all of us.
Kyle,
Yeah.
yes, we need to interrupt
There it
you
is.
for a minute.
Yeah, we don't
Okay.
have the letters.
I have a packet that looks like this. It was right at the front of my, inside the front cover of my booklet.
Do you have, I don't have those
It's
letters.
dated July 27th.
And there are some audits that have
Thank
the
you.
letters and some that don't. We tend to print the audits with the letters and give those to the commission, so it's possible they could have got mixed around.
Yeah. Okay, now if you'll start over on the letter, all of us have the
Okay.
letters now.
So this first one is our presentation letter. If we would have had any issues during the audit, we would have come to the commission orally with those issues, things such as disagreements with management. We weren't getting the information we needed, things of that nature. We did not come to the commission with any kind of issues like that. So really, this is a cookie cutter letter that you would see in all municipalities. Obviously, with COVID-19, we did do the audit virtually from our office, which, obviously doesn't make things easier for anybody. But we were able to get through it, and hopefully going forward, we won't have this issue again as far as having to do it virtually. So I encourage you to read through that. I'm not going to go line by line through it. You would see this in every municipality audit throughout the state. Between those is our audit adjustments. We have just minor adjustments to accounts payable. There's nothing to be concerned about, nothing out of the ordinary. So there weren't any major audit adjustments as far as the financial statements go. Finally, we get to that last letter in that packet. It's got a date at the top, but it's not on letterhead. So this is what we call the management representation letter. And we kind of like to refer to it as a reminder letter. It lists all kinds of different things that we ask about during the audit, things that we're required to ask about. It's good for management and you as a commission to kind of review it and see some of the different things that we're kind of asking for as far as the audit goes. And we kind of refer to it as a reminder letter for the sake of when management's reviewing it. They can look through and say, well, did we talk about this with the audit? Is there something of concern in this certain area? So it's good for them to kind of refresh their brains and kind of see and make sure that if anything came up regarding any of these, we would have talked about. With that being said, do I have any questions?
Any questions, Commissioner Hayes?
I'd like to return to the proposed audit adjustments, please. And most of these values seem to be quite small. Please explain once again why this movement between the two funds is necessary as a correction or as an adjustment.
Is there a specific one you're talking about or just in general?
The largest one is, I think, the one on the second page with regard to an outstanding purchase orders.
Okay, the $246,000 one?
Yes.
Yeah. So that one, for audit purposes, it was just recorded in the wrong account. So we had it recorded as a debit to accounts payable, whereas it was really a transfer out to another fund. So it was just simply a matter of just being in the wrong account.
So it was just misidentified, is that what you're saying?
This was more of just like a reclass type of entry.
I understand. And would that be true of then the movements from, for instance, cash to accounts payable on the first page?
So those entries we had some accounts payable that were shown in our financials as paid in 2019, but we actually didn't cut the check until 2020. So that was just to reclass that accounts payable to actually show it as still accounts payable instead of actually being paid at year end.
So more of just a cutoff or a timing issue.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Kyle, would that hold true on that same page, under column 2 and under column 3, would be those type of adjustments?
Yeah, so number 2, during the audit, we're required to do a search of those checks written in July 2020. So one of those items that we found was an electric bill, and those are kind of tricky because the time periods that they span don't necessarily always line up with year end. So maybe, you know, we didn't get the bill until January and it ran the middle of December to the middle of January. So we try to attribute that portion that is attributable back to December. That's kind of what that entry was about. And then the next entry, number 3, was just to reverse that in the new year, so we didn't have that expense shown twice.
All right, thank you, Kyle.
Not a problem.
Okay, I have no questions about the audit. Lacey, do you have anything to add or you want to mention at this time? Or? Okay. I appreciate your work on it. I don't believe there's any formal acceptance that we have to make. Appreciate you joining us by phone. And with that, then, if there's no further questions, we'll move back to presentation by Labette Health regarding the final update, the 2016 Economic Development Grant, and a request for funds to expand the Independence Care Facility.
Thank you, Commissioners. Sorry I was late. That usually works good because last time, about 4 years ago, I was late for a train and and I can't remember, we built an ER after that meeting, so maybe that'll work out as good this time. Really nice to be back here with you guys. It seems like it's been a long while and we're living under some interesting circumstances, but thanks for letting me be here. I emailed this, so let me begin by saying thank you. In 2016, the city and the county supported us with an economic development grant. The city was $200,000, the county was $100,000. And so in that requirement, or in that grant, we voluntarily, we said we want to be at risk. If we don't employ 50% of the staff from Montgomery County, then we would pay X amount back, and it was a formula for that. And then every January, we would give you that information, that audit. And so I'm really proud that the total number is 88%. I'd really, so we far exceeded 50%. I'd really credit Becky Mitchell and our Chief Nursing Officers here, Kathy McKinney, because, my goal was to be in the 90%. It is taxpayers' money, it is your money, and we should continually reinvest as much as we can in ourselves. So any questions? I know we provided that in January. I couldn't get over here in person, but any questions on that? I thought that process went well, and I can't thank you enough on behalf of the Labette Health employees and really the citizens of Independence for helping us do that. Went a long way. No? Okay. Building our future. So, you're either growing this day and age or you're merging and going out of business in healthcare, really, to be honest with you. We've been very, very fortunate and very blessed. To my knowledge, we're the only hospital in Southeast Kansas that's growing. And in the last 5 years, with your help and others, we added 7 rural health clinics in the area. We're probably looking at adding 2 next year. Doug didn't know that, but he does now. And really continuing to grow, it takes a certain density of population to maintain a level 3 trauma center. We've expanded recently our orthopedic program. Dr. Brandon Morris, I think the press releases went out a couple of days ago. He joined us. He was educated in Colorado. He went to KU for medical school. I met him at Harvard where he was doing a foot and ankle fellowship. He came back and did a sports medicine fellowship. And so he'll be joining us September 9th. Eric Hunn is a general surgeon that trained in Wichita with KU. He's originally from Erie, so he's returned. And, one of the things that we have to look at is the age. Yesterday was my birthday. I'm 57. I'm going to retire one day. Who's going to be the CEO? And so I think when your general surgeons are closer to the end of their career than the beginning of their career, it's our responsibility to be looking out, for, who's the next chapter. So Labette Health's positioned, I think, in a very good situation to maintain. So next slide. So I think you guys have seen this, and we had it in the paper, the yellow portions. Do you have paper copies of this? You guys do? Okay. So interrupt me anytime if you have questions. Really, when we designed Independence Healthcare Center, we designed it to have really 4 to 5 providers, and I think there's 12 or 14 that rotate through it. And so we were full, the year after we opened. So success, failure breeds a different set of problems. Success breeds a different set of problems. So we really need to expand Independence Healthcare Center. Obviously, capital is a challenge in all organizations when they're growing, whether you're a bank, whether you're a city, whether you're a healthcare organization. This needs to be refined a little bit. That was kind of the first initial planning. I want to credit really Dave, Kelly, Sean, and Lacey. About a year ago, I think the city looked at strategic planning and began trying to say what services would you like to see, and so we've tried to incorporate those. Ultrasound is one. If you have a patient in the ER, they have abdominal pain, they have something where we need ultrasound, we have to transport the patient to the main facility where there's ultrasound. OB needs ultrasound. So the plan would really be to expand that service, probably consolidate our women's and children's clinic into one facility so that we can provide better care to the citizens of Montgomery County. Next slide, please. So yeah, if you can go. Yeah, so this is a project overview. So what we're looking at would be adding 10,560 square feet and then 720 square feet within a storm shelter. So what I would envision is really that we take a conference room. A lot of hospitals will do that, and an internal wall, fill it with whatever you probably know, the necessary stuff, cinder block room, so that we can have the storm shelter outside, but then also a place inside. So around 11,260 square feet. Next slide, please. We don't take a lot of time to make decisions, and I'm really blessed by our board. I do want to talk to Southeast Kansas Regional Health. They haven't really had a chance to see this. And really, this is directional. It's for us to have a conversation. I think it's possible for us to put our plans together between now and the end of the year. Everybody kind of have their input, and we build it based on that time schedule and have Independence Healthcare Center expanded within the next 18 months. Next slide. So, in order to do that, we have to look at the land, and you have to kind of look out in the future. So this is a concept sketch, and I have kind of the detail, but what if we wanted to add 2 operatories, an ambulatory surgery center? Those are 400 square feet per room by code. They can go up to 600 square feet. How much square footage would we need? How would we shape it? So we started there, expanding, what would be future services that we could do that would be inpatient, make sure we left room for inpatient beds if we can grow to that someday. And so that's the top part of the building. I don't have a pointer. But then you move down and you can see the center area is expanding our lab, ultrasound, a conference room, and then down below it would be the clinic. At some point, we'll have to put the road in around back if we continue to expand. We've talked to Sean and Dave a little bit about that. Dave's leaving on that. But that's a $500,000 road, so it's not a road we want to put in right now. It's about $100,000 to add a couple of fire hydrants, and I think Sean and Dave are still looking at that. We will need to expand the stormwater retention a little bit, so we've left room for that if we add that back parking lot with all that stormwater runoff. But right now, we would put the parking lot in the front. We'd expand the clinic. We'd add it's really important to patients that are going through cancer treatment. They love the infusion center. They love not being in the basement of a building, and they have windows, and they want to have a garden. So we budgeted $100,000 for the garden. We have some donor funds. I don't remember how much, but probably half of it is paid for, and then the hospital was going to pay for the other half. But we've tried to incorporate everybody's wants. Next slide. Thanks, Kelly. So the budget, you can see the budget there. It's over $5 million, but you can see some alternates down at the bottom. If we shell part of the space, that cuts back, $500,000. So the goal is, what I'm working towards is around a $4 million budget for expansion. And I think we can do that. We're bidding now on our main facility, and some of the initial bids have come in, under. We all kind of know what our economy's going through, and there's a lot of people want to get back to work. And so I think we can beat this budget. Next slide. I thought I had one more slide in there, but anyway, really just a discussion. One of you had kind of called me a year or so ago and talked about, let me go back. Probably 2015, we all kind of lived through. There was $3 million that was going to, be put in, and then there was mills, and I think if CRMC and Mercy could get together, the city was going to throw in $3 million, and we all kind of lived through that. I don't know where that money is. I think last time it was built in, some of that was built into the budget, but then there's economic development funds and maybe franchise taxes. So, I know how much I would like for help, but I want you guys to kind of discuss it and have a chance, and the staff to really look at it and see if you can help us. I think what I would anticipate if we developed a $4 million project, we would try to raise $1 million in donor funds. We were very successful last time. We raised $1.4 million basically in local donor funds, and then about $300,000 in economic development funds. So it was around $1.7 million, $1.8 million. The hospital took 100% risk on the $6 million USDA loan, and we continue to take all that risk. So if it's $4 million and we can raise $1 million, then that leaves $3 million. And no, I'm not asking for $3 million. But I went back and forth. Do I ask for a specific number? I think one of you I'd talked to a year or so ago said, maybe we could do $200,000 a year over a 10-year period. If that was doable, and I knew it was coming, then probably what I'd do is go to Matt Sutherland and Brad Oakes and say, hey, could we do a loan, a local loan, or a bank consortium? I've been involved in those with neighborhood assistance credits and things like that. Could we do a bank consortium loan, and we just borrow the money, but we know where the principal is, and then we'd take the risk, on the interest. What I don't want to do is be the cause of increasing taxes. I think our taxes are pretty high now, so I don't want to be responsible for a mill increase. So I looked at the strategic plan, and business and industry provide an environment to facilitate growth and retention of business and industry. We all know without that ER, no businesses are coming here, and no manufacturing's probably going to stay. We kind of went through that, and we saw the 1,000 population that we lost, so we'll never be able to put a price on that. And then quality of life, to support and maintain quality of life initiatives that meet the cultural and health needs of the community. An ER, Independence Healthcare Center, does that. So thank you for your support. I think our future's bright. An update on the main facility. We've started an $18.5 million renovation and expansion. We'll use $8.5 million of cash. That's partially why I'm even here asking. We did a $10 million hospital revenue bond. got very favorable rates, but COVID ticked it up. It would have been in the 2s, but with the yield curve, I think we ended up at 3, I can't remember, 3 something, a little over 3. It is fixed for 20 years, but like any time you try to renovate a 1961 building, before we even got started, we had a $922,000 cost overrun. I'm really not willing to dip into our contingency at this point when we haven't even really turned dirt. And so with COVID, we've had a lot of air exchange things that we need to add. You know, the Independence Healthcare Center has a negative air room in the ER. Our main facility doesn't. So tonight there's a patient in our ER that's COVID positive, and we had to turn off all the air conditioning and the ventilation because obviously we don't want the air circulating. So we've got bigger challenges at the main facility than we do the brand new facility. And I mention that because 5 years ago it was like, well, you're just going to bring all your old equipment from over there. Every single thing at Independence Healthcare Center is brand new, courtesy of donors and you. So any questions or any thoughts? I guess I'm really looking more for guidance if there's any appetite and interest to help us, if staff has any thoughts.
Commissioner Hayes?
Well, first of all, I think on behalf of the community, we are more than delighted with the investment that you have made in Independence. The Independence Healthcare Facility is just a stellar example of how the new world of medicine can serve a community of our size. So thank you for that. This seems to be quite timely. Just recently, we formed a new city board, the Economic Development Advisory Board, and put some really talented people to work for the city in that regard, to look at different facets of economic development that could be leveraged for growth, and I'm sure that healthcare is on their radar. I would like to engage them in this conversation as soon as possible. Other than that, I don't have any questions of my own.
Okay. Commissioner Ususi?
Brian, I would like to thank you for your commitment to the community. Our community will continue to stabilize as long as we continue to expand healthcare facilities that are available here in our community. And what we're looking at is what healthcare in rural America is going to look like. So we appreciate everything that you've done, and I think to kind of piggyback on what Dean said, this new Economic Advisory Board, they've been put together, and they will help sit in on this and come up with some ideas as how we can help Labette Health on this project and move it forward. But I think it's vital, not only for the community, but for attracting other industry, manufacturing, those type of jobs, to see that we have an expanded healthcare base here in the city of Independence that they can rely on, and that will help in the recruitment of those type of businesses and, of course, people to fill the positions in those facilities and manufacturing jobs.
Well, during the last 3 years, we've used the facility numerous times. Emergency room, the infusion center, the clinic for drawing blood, even the helicopter transport. Back when we first faced the closing of Mercy, looking at our options, never thought we would be utilizing a facility firsthand, but after so many different events going there, we're really fortunate that you did step up and Labette Health stepped up for the community. And, I saw when you first presented the idea that we were on the cutting edge of a new wave in healthcare. And, the old way with that always go to a doctor and the provider, we've seen different providers in the emergency room, and each one has been very professional. We felt very comfortable sharing problems, and their diagnosis has been excellent. So, we're very supportive of your facility, and, looking at a community with aging population, but then where we want to go and reach out to new industry, to new people. Healthcare is one of the primary issues, and I think we should support you in any way possible with the expansion, because and not as much, this is what we want, because we don't know healthcare, but with you opening 7 rural clinics and the expansion that you're doing, I think we're at a shift that we really don't need full hospital. We need something, and you know what that is. And as you bring those ideas to us, I think we can work together for the community and reach the needs of our people. And I've got children and grandchildren living here, and their health care is primary concern. And look at the number of masks that we're all wearing. We're all concerned. We're all facing dilemmas and in a situation we don't know where the future will be, but when we need health care, we want it. And you've stepped up for the community, and thank you. And again, I'm supportive of anything we can do to see the phase 2 come together. I know we've started looking at I visited with Terry and David about existing services and what that would be, and ways to be prepared. And one of our projects we're looking at would include extending a water line to bring, you've got a dead-end fire hydrant.
Right.
And to put it on a loop so it will improve not only service to you, but any protection along Peter Pan Road. That, we've got to look at those areas, and we're excited to see the future. So, any further questions, commissioners, comments?
No, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. I guess I'll work with Kelly and get in front of the Economic Development Committee. That timeline's aggressive. I don't know if you guys can work that fast, but on September 4th, 2015, when I appeared before you the first time, the hospital closed October 10th, I believe, and we hesitated, and we went without services for a year, which put a lot of strain on the EMS. So, a fast no is better than a slow yes, because we're going to get it done. It would be a lot easier to get it done with help. So I'll work with Kelly, but the first time I came here, I will never forget this. Mickey pointed out that he didn't think we could do it because we'd lost $3.6 million the year prior. So from 2010 to 2014, we lost $8 million. With your help and the support of Southeast Kansas, we've made $13 million. So, some would say, well, then do it on your own. Well, there's a limit to the capital that we have. And so the vision, it really wasn't a question, but Commissioner Kaflish, Mary, you've always been able to look out in the future in the 5 years I've worked with you. What does Southeast Kansas need? We need to ensure that there's at least one level 3 trauma center with a hospital that has a robust orthopedic program. There is only one. The other level 3 trauma center does not have continuous orthopedic care. It's very close to the Missouri border, run by a Catholic health system. that's not headquartered in Southeast Kansas. I mean, they don't. That's just a fact. So Kathy's heard me say this. What I worry about the most? So my ultimate goal is to ensure that your families, your kids, your grandkids, your friends, your neighbors, that while it'd be ideal if it was right here, it's not possible in the future. And the more we fragment our limited resources, the more we'll guarantee that at some point we may not have those trauma services and a helicopter. So that you didn't ask for my vision. My vision is I'm a fiduciary like you. I want to make sure long after I'm retired that there's a level 3 trauma center here. And I think that's possible. But it's not possible really if we rest on our laurels and those things. So I really appreciate you again for letting me be here. I'll work with Lacey and Kelly and Dave and Sean and the new Economic Development Committee. I was aware of it. And then just if you have questions or feedback, let me know.
Well, I think what we've had recently is some joint meetings with the Economic Development Commission and the commission. So, you know, this is something we don't want to miss the opportunity. The window is tight, and we want to be able to work in the window that exists to get things going, that we don't lag behind as before.
2 days ago, the current administration released CHART. It's a new pilot plan towards rural health care. But if the administration changes in November, that'll probably be all out the door. So I think at the end we have to rely on grassroots, what we can do, what we can control, and I think kind of when we work together 5 years ago, we can see out on Peter Pan what we can do together. So just thank you guys for your time. I hope I didn't take too much, and Trish is up next.
No, thank you.
All right, thank you, Brian.
Kelly?
We have the next meeting is September 1st at 3:30, the Economic Development Advisory Board, first Tuesday. So I will get this information to them, and I already have another meeting with Chuck and Tricia on, set up in the next, first part of next week, so actually tomorrow. So we'll visit about this then also, but that's when their next meeting, so it's coming up pretty quick.
Yeah, and if we need special meetings to keep it going, then let us know, because the commission, we need to stay in touch. I know you've been doing an excellent job keeping us informed of all things, so let's keep it going.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a presentation from MAC regarding 2021 funding. How timely that is.
By the skin of my teeth. And I apologize, we normally would have come a month ago, but we were so swamped trying to get Spark done for the county that I wasn't even aware what day it was until I looked up and saw that you guys it was August. So I apologize for that. But thank you for getting me on the agenda and letting me come talk to you guys about what we've done already this year and what we plan on doing in the future. And it was awesome to follow Brian, but I am not even remotely as exciting as he is, so I apologize now. I will say, though, that this has been a roller coaster year for our county, definitely for MAC. We started off the year with record-breaking announcements. We filled Amazon. We filled Southwire. We're going to have over 200 new jobs coming to our county this year. And so that was amazing to start off our year. I couldn't have had a better Christmas when we found out that they were doing this, and we announced it later in January. And then Prosperity announced in February a new modular housing manufacturer going into the Southwire building. And so we're really excited. Those are, both done. I actually met with Prosperity, or actually both Prosperity and Phoenix today to talk about future opportunities and how those projects are moving along. So, we've already seen 209 new jobs created in Montgomery County this year. Most of those were in the first quarter before COVID hit. We saw a lot of losses, though, in that second quarter. So if we wouldn't have had those losses, I think we really were on trend for some pretty amazing numbers. We've submitted 7 proposals, and actually this report is now old because I've submitted 2 this week in addition. So that we're up to 9 new proposals, and suddenly the floodgates have opened. I think that the business community, international and domestic, are starting to look at, let's start looking at new options and growing our footprint to allow for more adaptable response, especially given COVID-19. So moving into a more rural area where you don't have the concentration of population is definitely high on the look list, what we're hearing from site consultants across the United States. So we're ready and willing, and our numbers have definitely shown that. We're getting more hits now on our site selection page on our website than we have really since we made those 2 announcements. So we're really starting to see an uptick in those. We have 7 new businesses that have opened in Montgomery County. I'm counting Prosperity because technically they haven't opened their doors yet, but they have started their hiring process for some of their top officials. Phoenix Logistics, including Array Technologies, which is the one that purchased the Amazon building. If you take a look out there, it looks pretty amazing. They've painted the building. It's all cleaned up now. The landscaping is back intact. We don't have 2-foot-high weeds anymore. It's now a nice entry point on 169. And we're currently working on 4 expansion retention projects. Those are obviously confidential, but those projects, we're really hoping that we are able to retain them in our county. A couple of them are due to COVID-19, unfortunately. And then, of course, we're working on retail food recruitments. Those have definitely slowed with COVID-19, but we did have a meeting 2 weeks ago with one that is very strongly looking at Montgomery County for a new food establishment. So we're really hoping that one will get going, and it sounds like they're going to move pretty fast. So, but really, I would say since March, our job has been to assist the business community, assist the city, and assist our chamber and Main Street to really help them respond to COVID-19 and the dramatic issues that have come along with that. So we worked, of course, we've been working on Spark. We're coordinating and administering the $6.5 million that the county received, of which tomorrow will be the county commission meeting where they officially finally decide on exactly what will be awarded. So you're welcome to attend that meeting. It's at 10 o'clock tomorrow in the Judicial Center. But we know that there were a lot of requests. We had about $9.2 million in requests for funding. We only had about $6.5 million. And I say we, I mean the county. Had $6.5 million to disperse. Independents did receive a sizable portion, and that number is similar almost to what Coffeyville was, and Caney and Cherryville's are similar as well. So it ended up being, funny enough, to where it really was pretty indicative of what the populations were of each community. And then that funding was then dispersed for the 6 school districts, including the 2 community colleges, based on student head count. So those were the 2 that were challenging to see how those could get cut down. Because I would say a majority between the school districts and the municipalities was the largest amount of funding requests that were received for the ended up being the $9.2 million. I will say, though, I think, we gave Brian some good news at Labette Health here for Independence, too, so that'll be officially public tomorrow, but we're excited to be able to support their proposal as well. We've also been working on CDBG-CV. We got several grant applications from businesses and working with Kelly and Lacey to try to get that rounded up. The state threw us a curveball in the last possible minute. Right after we closed our grant, the state said, oh wait, now we need more information from every single one of your applicants. So we had to basically stop our entire process of going through everybody's and send that question back out to every business and literally call pretty much every single one of the businesses that applied, which is about 52 businesses. So that took a little time, but I think we finally got a solid number. Everybody finally has responded with that required information per the state, so we can finally move forward on that. So hopefully we can have that on the next Economic Development Advisory Board task force, or if you want to have it decided amongst yourselves, just let me know, but more than happy to kind of go through those with you when those are ready to go. Funny enough, we have had 3 new business startups in Montgomery County since COVID-19. I will say, I have another one that we're just about done, and we'll be able to send out to some of our funding partners like Network Kansas and SEK Regional Planning Commission to try to get some funding for them. So that's exciting to see. Even though COVID is happening, we are still seeing business startups. Before COVID, I think we're around 15 that we were currently working with, and that dropped off. Most of those died, unfortunately, but we got 3 new ones that are now coming back. So the trickle is starting to happen again. Our economy is starting to recover, but we definitely took a hit, especially with our industry. And most of our industry has not completely recovered. The supply chain is a massive issue. When you saw every port in the United States basically taking a month to 3 months to process any inbound shipment, that kills our industry. So those are finally open up. I talked with Union Pacific, Burlington Northern, and Watco, and all 3 of them confirmed that their shipments are starting to get closer to being on time than they were before. So that's good news too. Lastly, I'll say that we're really excited, and if you didn't see the announcement in the midst of COVID, it does look like 2 projects on 169 were awarded in the new Kansas Forward program, the IKE program. We're going to get passing lanes on 169, and there's going to be some passing lanes added on 400, both of which, or all 3 of which, are right around Montgomery County. One is right on the Montgomery County border, just north of 400, and between Thayer and Montgomery County border. And then the other one's going to be just north of K47, north of Thayer. Both of those areas were extremely risky areas to pass, and so now we'll have some new nice passing lanes along there, which will make it a 4-lane wide passing lane on both of those segments. So we fought extremely hard the last 2 years to get those done, and we're really excited to see that we got those projects accomplished. So now we're ready for round 2 on that one, which will happen in 2 years. So I will say I'm already talking to Secretary Lorenz about what those look like. So with that, I will give you one little bit of a tidbit that I'm not allowed to tell you, which I'm frustrated with. I'm not allowed to announce it till Monday, but we have received some additional funding that directly affects independents and will help independents on our economic development efforts, which we're really excited about, but they told me I'm not allowed to announce till Monday, but I just found out this afternoon, so I'll get with Kelly and let her know kind of what that's going, and we can do that back channel route, I suppose, but officially we'll be able to announce on Monday on that. So we're really excited. But it is
Great.
specifically for independents.
That's good news.
Yes.
And I think in your letter you had addressed the request for budget funding
Yes.
for 2021 as $25,000, and that's the same. That was
Same as-
last year.
Yes, the last couple of
I
years.
believe that's what we included, correct, Lacey? Yes. So we're just, tonight we're going to have the public hearing on the budget, and that's good. That's
Okay.
good.
Well, I very much appreciate it. We're working really hard for independents in the community, and I will say the teamwork that happens with the community of independents has been phenomenal, especially with COVID. You guys have some of the best staff, I would say, anywhere in Southeast Kansas, hands down. So thank you very much for all you're doing.
Yeah, we're proud of our staff and the work they do, and like the economic advisory board starting up, and your cooperation and your assistance there is greatly appreciated.
That's what I'm here for.
Thank you.
The last little bit, since I have the mic, there is another grant that just got posted today at 4:00 from Kansas Department of Commerce, and it's basically Spark Round 2. If you want to go, I'll be posting it on our Facebook as soon as I get back to the table, but it's on Kansas Commerce's website. It goes directly to the state, but there's funds available for our nonprofits and our businesses. There's grants for businesses who implemented or changed their manufacturing operation to make PPE when we had such a shortfall. There's grants for our grocery stores and food providers. So that would include if we have anyone who's processing meat. We know that's a massive backlog. There's also some grants out there for broadband and technology expansion. I know that was definitely one of your projects in Spark 1.
Right.
I would take a look at that and see if you can take that further. because it definitely is, from what I talked with Secretary Toland last week, they're really looking at those projects that somewhat were funded in Spark 1, and this will really emphasize and help get that deal really done. So I think you guys have a strong chance on that one as well. So
That's good news.
well, they technically are available to look at now, but they don't go live until Wednesday. But that gives us, just a couple days really to get this done. So it moves really fast, and it's first come, first serve.
Great.
So.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Any
Thank you.
questions for Trish?
Trish, I know that it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose at your office nowadays, but it's really impressive, the capability and capacity you've demonstrated for us on behalf of Independence and on behalf of the city. So we really appreciate the effort that you've put into making us candidates for these funds and getting the funds correctly handled and to the granting organization, or the documents to the granting organization, and then the rest of it too. So just amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for being here this evening.
Hopefully I get to breathe without a fire hose to my face after Friday.
All right, Trish, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we go into the public hearings, could I interest the commissioners in a 5-minute break?
Indeed.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. We'll take a 5-minute recess, so we'll resume at 6:46.
Oh, my goodness.
It's time that we resume the meeting. The next item on the agenda is public hearings. First is a public hearing to consider adopting the 2021 budget as proposed. Lacey?
All right. Well, I'll just go over a very brief summary since I know we've brought this to 2 or 3 different meetings. But basically, this public hearing will be to discuss and hopefully approve the budget.
Oh, excuse me. I guess I forgot to formally open the
Okay.
public hearing. Now,
Now
Continue.
continue? Okay. So the requested mills is, the levy is $2,599,499, and that is just within $100 or so, I believe, of the levy last year. It is, the mill rate requested is 55.227, compared to last year's 55.032. That is a slight increase. It's about $9,000 due to a reduction in valuation. The mill levy funds are the general fund, the library, the industrial fund, general fund employee benefits, liability insurance fund, and that is it, those 5. So I guess now I will open it for any questions or anything, or if you want me to go over anything else in detail again.
No, if that's all your presentation for right now, then I'll open it for public to express their concerns or interest in the budget. So is there anyone in the public that would like to speak during the public hearing? There are none from the public, so with that, I'll close the public hearing, now open it for discussion. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Lacey? Commissioner Ususi?
No, I don't, Lacey.
Commissioner Hayes?
I have none.
I think through our budget meetings, I want to compliment you on your presentation and of the information to the commissioners. I think it was really easy to follow, and the time that you took to go through it with us. It explained a lot that we're able at this point not to have the questions, and with it being, I think we did record and broadcast the hearings or the meetings, so if there's no further questions from the commissioners, then I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion that we move to approve the 2021 budget as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you, Lacey.
Next item on the agenda is a public hearing to consider authorizing the mayor to sign required documents for the submission of a grant request with the Kansas Department of Agriculture to request a USDA Rural Development Grant for $50,000 to purchase crucial public safety equipment. Okay, Lacey?
All right. So my life has been consumed lately by grants and grant opportunities and researching grants and applying for grants. And this is one that I came across from the USDA, and it is for rural community infrastructure and equipment. And through speaking with the representative, we came down to a proposed project for independence of 2 new cardiac monitors, new SCBA replacement equipment, and 1 police vehicle, including upfitting. The 2 cardiac monitors need to be replaced per regulations by January 1st of 2021. All items that are requested are budgeted items, but these grant monies are here to help cover that gap in underfunding of our budget during this time. So I wanted to make sure that these were all budgeted items, that we just needed the extra help, extra funding to make up any difference of a shortfall. So that was the equipment that was selected to be presented, and first I had to submit a pre-application so that the USDA could go through and pre-authorize things and make sure everything fit into the correct categories. And we received notification that we were basically pre-approved, but now we need to go through the actual application process. So the documents, one requirement is to hold this public hearing to make sure that there are no public concerns for this. And then we also, the list of supporting documents that you received are the assurances and just the filing and signing of all the paperwork required for me to submit the grant.
Okay. At this time in the public hearing, I'll open it to the public to express interest or concerns. And we have no one in the public that's interested at this time, so I'll close the public hearing.
I would like to add one thing, and just a thank you to Lux Wright. She is a high school student at USD 446, and she actually helped me research this and helped me write some of it, and just went through the application process alongside me. So just a formal thank you to her. She wanted to be here tonight, but she couldn't get off work. So
Okay. So commissioners, do you have questions for Lacey?
I have none.
I have none. It was well explained, Lacey.
thanks.
Thank you for finding the grant, and hopefully we secure it.
And one thing you noted in the information you sent to us, some of the equipment, or all the equipment is dated, that it has an effective life, and this is to replace equipment that's either ready to expire or to expand coverage to another ambulance. I think we have 2 ambulances with the equipment, and
All of our ambulances are required to be equipped with the cardiac
Right.
monitors, and then David Cowan has our backup or additional one for backup assistance in his vehicle.
So, well, if there's no other questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to authorize the mayor to sign all required documents and for city staff to submit all application documents and any related documents to the USDA for consideration.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. During the adoption of the mission agenda, there were no modifications, so at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried.
The Recreation Commission has, representatives have advised us that they have another meeting at 7:30, and they asked if you
Oh.
could move their discussion item up at this time.
It was a discussion item, correct?
It is a discussion item on the electrical at the ballparks.
Do we need a motion to move that forward in the agenda, or can you do that by mayoral edict?
Just so we're all in agreement, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we move the discussion item for the Independence Rec Commission to the next item of business.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. That is item A under discussions.
Thank you very much. I'm Brent Julian, Director of the Recreation. I just wanted to kind of discuss, or I guess get back on the table. I don't know if the words I'm looking for assistance or guidance here, but wanting to go back to the last time the ball fields flooded down on Park Street, which is a little over a year ago now. We lost a lot of the electricity to the facilities. The last two ball seasons, even with COVID and everything, has been a little different. But just to catch you guys kind of up, and like I said, get it back on discussion, we've only had electricity to the one main field there, the boys' baseball field we call Clark James. We've lost it to the Sinclair Field, Bicentennial Field, and then just this year on JC Field, we just received a letter the other day from Evergy saying that they would have to shut us down the electricity to that as well because it's not up to code. We looked into this about a year ago. Actually met a few times on it with Don Cushing and Dave Cowan and everybody, and even had the I guess the electric board out there. And we did go ahead and get an updated bid from Blankenship Electric at the time, what it would take to get everything back up and running and above flood stage. I think we've sent that to you a couple times, but it's $49,000. And there again, that would be just to get the electricity back to it, but get it above the flood stage. So where we're at is, like I said, we just finished up our shortened season this year with COVID, but we're just kind of at a point now as a rec board. We're, like I said, looking for guidance, or is this something that we can work on together? Is this something that's going to fall back in our lap only? It's just something we think we need to, we're at a point anywhere on our side where, we would just like to get it back on the table so we can figure out what we're doing, so we don't have to play next summer in the same situation, obviously. It was doable this year, actually, because the numbers were down, but obviously we'd like to have lights on our ball fields again if possible. So just kind of wanting to get that back on, and like I said, get it back up for discussion and see where you guys thought you guys were at on it, or what I needed to do, I guess, in general.
Do you have a specification from Blankenship, what that would, as far as what that would look like, as far as how above the floodplain that equipment would need to be mounted?
Yeah, I mean, he's got he did it. I can bring this to you guys if you this is more the detailed, it breaks down each of the ball fields, and there again. One of the main issues we had when we started discussing this or getting it fixed is we obviously don't just want to do the quick fix and have everything still below, where we're gonna get flooded again, We might not have the 100-year flood or whatever they say down there, but we seem to get flooded down there quite a bit. So we would like to try to get everything up to code and also above the floodplain. So it's not something we're constantly, dealing with, so.
I was curious, I've got this information here, but foot-wise, how high are we talking about?
Most things, I think we're talking 20 foot, up to 30. Some of the stuff can be buried. Some of the lines can be buried, and then the main boxes or whatever. I think I want to say it's around 20 foot is where the guidelines are. So.
Is this something that really we need to have an engineer investigate, that we can have a list of the deficiencies and a design? I know you're looking at also the soccer fields, I believe, so, how does the power extend into that? We've, to identify all the deficiencies with one price. Normally we look at 3 bids, and when you don't have anything spelled out, then you get kind of a cross gamut. You really don't know what you're getting with the other bids. So you don't need this until next spring, the lighting?
We will be playing soccer down there again here starting, but we can make do without the lights. We're not planning on putting lights on the new soccer complex either. But yeah, we would need it. Ideally, we'd like it for next summer, for when ball season comes back around.
So, I don't think we want to put it off, but looking at, I guess I think when we did the memorandum of understanding, it really didn't go into much. It dealt mainly with the soccer fields on how the maintenance of existing facilities there would work.
Yeah, correct. We've kind of come down this road a couple times. We don't really have in writing anyway, we really don't have a contract per se down on the ball fields. And without misspeaking, where my board's kind of at it is, like I said, we would just like some guidance on it so we can get the discussion going again, whether that's going to fall back on us or not. We've kind of always dealt under the understanding of, water, electricity's provided to us, and then we take care of everything else from there on, whether that be the maintenance of the fields, whether that be, updating the fields of the press box, or in this case this year, a couple staircases, but obviously we're trying to get our money to go into the programming aspect of it, and then, maintenance of the fields themselves, so.
Yeah. Since, we don't have a list of deficiencies, that Westar probably is only concerned about service entrance and the connection, and that's it. But, where you go beyond that, I wondered, then do we have issues within the buildings of electric panels, or, on the owner's side? So is this something we should research, go ahead and start with a design and prepare some documents for bidding, and at the same time then discuss cost share or what happens to that? I know we have, PEC is working electrical. They've got an engineer that's been working on the water treatment plant, or we get another electrical engineer to start with a design that we can make sure we got everything done and get a bid package.
Okay.
That we could make sure we got everything covered and then protect all interested parties. I don't know, commissioners?
a good plan is a good place to start. I'm the new guy on the commission, so I get to ask the obvious questions that perhaps are otherwise understood, and that is these ballparks were constructed in the floodplain. We understood that at the time that they were built initially. Am I wrong? Did we know that it would flood there when we built the ballparks?
Ballparks were built before me, so I couldn't tell you.
Floodplains by definition existed.
Huh?
I don't know.
So are do the improvements at the ballparks belong to the City of Independence, or do the improvements at the ballpark belong to the Independence Rec Commission?
The Recreation Commission cannot own property, just like the Housing Authority, correct, Jeff?
Correct.
Correct, yeah.
The Rec Commission built the fields.
Well, I think the fields probably preceded the rec commission, to be honest. Oh, well, most of them.
Yeah.
Yes, a couple of them, you're right.
Like the blast ball field or
Yeah, because
the little
Clark
one?
James was there when I played in the 60s.
So I understand those are kind of obvious questions, but I think they do deserved a little airing out there. So the city owns the property. The city owns the improvements to the property, and did the city install initially the electric systems? Is that an obvious question, or is that one that's something would need to be researched?
The electric system, let me see, how can I answer this? Because I replaced some of it in 2007 with the flood. Because you got several metering points there. Those that carry a load more than 400 amp are considered transformer-rated metering, which would mean they would be built with current transformers that would handle a bigger load than a self-contained meter would handle. So a lot of those were, Westar at that time, metering points were established to where you could read them. They were set between 5 and 6 feet with a 5.5 feet facing. But with that water getting as high as it's gotten, you're talking about not only that, but you're also talking about your main disconnects, all your circuits that feed all the buildings. Find some way to either weatherproof those to where they're not going to be continually damaged because it's going to flood again. It's just a matter of when and how.
There are electronics and outlets and wiring below 20 feet within the concession area, am I correct?
Correct.
And are they flood protected?
To use the word flood protected, I would not want to go on record as saying.
Will a flood destroy them?
Basically about 14 months ago when this happened, we actually redid the electrical in the concession stand to be up and running.
Right.
We thought the process would take, be a while, and my board did agree to move forward on getting the electric at the concession stand back up to code. So we have done that. We just have not moved on with any of the ball field lights.
Are there appliances within the concession stand?
Yes.
Do those belong to the Independence Rec Commission?
Yes, they do.
Okay. I don't know what else to ask. What other obvious questions should I be asking? Thank you, Brent.
Thank you.
Well, I think we need to know exactly everything that needs to be done. And it's hard to do that without a engineering study. And that's got to be the first step, to then look at what a budget cost would be. 'Cause I'm not for sure how the flood requirements are. Some of them we looked at with our ordinance, but distribution panels, building panels, outlets, lights, does that all need to be addressed too? So I think we need to begin with a plan. And we could start with a request for proposal from some electrical engineers. Then we can develop a budget and move forward. Then we need to discuss then on cost share, or how it would be funded, but we don't really know what the extent is. And probably at this time it would be good to get an idea of what, as you develop in the future electrically, that if it is going to be a meter set or a transformer set, if it's just going to be general lighting, some kind of load, so we could address it all in one study. Be prepared that next phase, when this is done, then automatically you could go on and connect to get power, or if it would be fed from another location above floodplain or whatever. But I think we need a plan, and not, I would hesitate to award the $49,000 without fully knowing everything that has to be addressed and that has been identified. Probably Westar is identifying their meter set and the first spot. Maybe they've told other, maybe Blankenship knows more, but for us, I think that would be my suggestion. We get proposals to move forward with a plan, and then look at costs and come back, with another discussion on implementing it. So, commissioners,
A good plan's a good place to start.
commissioner.
Yeah, I agree. We need more information.
Oh, Kelly, do you understand our
Yes,
direction then?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, Brent.
Just real quickly, so what's my next? Are we as a board getting this, or is this going to come through the city again, or?
The city is going to contact for proposals
Okay.
for that.
Okay. I just
And-
wanted to make sure I wasn't holding it up by me supposed to, so.
No.
All right, I appreciate you guys, and just let me know whatever I need to do or wherever I need to be, and we'll
I
help with
guess-
whatever we can.
Kind of timeline, if we could look at 30 to 60 days, getting a proposal, and then we can discuss after that's done, let you know, keep you posted,
Okay,
and then move forward.
all right.
But
That'd
the
be wonderful.
goal is, the earliest you would need it would be April.
Yes,
So that needs to be our goal, that we can complete all this prior to April 1
okay.
or March 1. Okay?
All right, I appreciate it very much, and thank you for moving me up also.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, items for commission action. Um, let's see. Item A, consider requests from the library for approval of renovation relating to COVID-19 protection. Okay, and Jerry?
So we are putting glass up around the circulation desk in the first floor and around one of the desks on the third floor for the children's area, the new children's area, in order to protect the staff from the COVID and also for other safety and health reasons.
Commissioners, you've had a chance to look at the design. Have you any questions concerning?
I have none.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
The only question I have, the building, that portion of the building is sprinkled, and due to the height of the wall, has an analysis been done of the location of the sprinkler heads to make sure you're not impeding the protection?
I'm not sure if the architect did that, but I do know that we didn't put it all the way to the ceiling, and the sprinklers were the reason.
But there's a distance that can't be exceeded on height. I think, for our protection of the building and the modification, we need to see that that has been checked and, that he certifies that it's in compliant with NFPA 13.
Okay.
Because, it's very specific. Later on, if the fire marshal comes in, we find out it's not, then we've got to modify the sprinkler system with additional heads.
All right, so I would have to ask Sean that because,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That would be the only thing. There seems to be enough gap that you're not tying to the soffits above, so your air circulation for your HVAC would be not impaired, but I looked through the notes and couldn't find a reference to a compliance or that it did provide proper distance to allow the coverage and of the existing sprinkler design. 'Cause with it open, there's nothing to impede the flow, so one head either side of the distribution desk or circulation desk would extinguish a fire, but once you put the barrier up, then it can impede the coverage of the heads. So the only
I know
thing,
that there's like a sprinkler right inside the circulation desk, so there'd be one there, and then there's an entire line of them that goes on the other side of the building, over the book stacks is
Yeah.
where the sprinklers are.
that would be the only thing I would say we need to confirm that it's still providing the uniform coverage
Okay,
over the area. But
so going forward, then, if we can certify that, then we could go ahead with the project and,
I think so.
Yeah, I think we could make the motion contingent upon compliance with fire safety.
Yeah.
okay,
As part of you just submit the letter to David
okay,
that it is in compliant with NFPA 13.
okay,
Yeah.
will do.
Would you prefer I put that code specific into the motion?
Right.
What was it again?
NFPA 13,
NFPA
yeah.
13.
13.
Got it.
So if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
I move to authorize renovations to the Independence Public Library relating to COVID-19 protection contingent upon compliance with fire safety regulation NFPA 13.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Could you guys send that notation to me so that I can know what I'm talking about when I talk to Sean? Okay, thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is consider a resolution authorizing the abatement of unhealthy and unsafe exterior conditions at 414 South Wald Avenue, and consider a resolution setting the date of September 24th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. for a public hearing to consider condemnation of a structure located at 414 South Wald Avenue as dangerous and unsafe. David?
Mayor, excuse me, our code enforcement officer was out on patrol and came across this and notified me, and this is one of those where an owner sells it on a rent-to-own type of deal, and he actually lives in the corner house, is renting to own this house, and decided he wanted to make it a garage. So he told me and Sean that him and his neighbors got the chainsaw out and made the cut, and they took everything that was in the house and put it out in the front lawn. Worked with Jeff to prepare a letter and the resolution, everything, in order to get this cleaned up. As you guys may have noticed if you drove by, they did pick up some of it. It's now on a trailer sitting there that they've covered with a tarp. However, they were unable to pick up all of it, and they've somewhere found a garage door that they've set up against the house. So, and that just, the house alone has other issues. It's a zoning issue. They're pulling cars in there on a floor that's not designed to hold cars and working on cars. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different issues that we need to address. We are continuing to communicate with them. I visited with them Tuesday morning, trying to get efforts, but we may have to finish cleaning up at least the mess and then see what we can do before the hearing as if we can resolve this issue.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes, questions?
I have no idea what to ask.
You're speechless?
It's just it's an amazing photograph. It's
Yep.
really well done.
Was the owner of the house that is selling this rent-to-own, she didn't have any idea this is what was taking place? I'm
She's
assuming?
very much aware of what's going on. Her son actually lives with the guy that's purchasing it in the house on the corner. She knows the activities that are going on and everything there, but she's selling it to them, and what they do with it, I don't understand, Commissioner. It sounds like she may have her money, but she's unwilling to go to the county and sign the deed over. So I don't know what's happening between the two of them, but she is well aware of what's going on, and she's informed me that it's his problem, that he officially owns it. Well, I said, well, if you go to the county and make it official, that would help, because right now you're the official owner, even though we served them both.
Right. Okay, it's not every day you see something like this.
No.
Amazed.
So first, dealing with the cleanup of the site, the resolution will authorize a letter to give them 14 days, or is this an immediate cleanup?
I think the way the ordinance reads, it's 20 days.
20 days,
Yeah.
okay. And then the cost of the city cleaning up is applied to the property, okay? And then the next would be to set a public hearing as dangerous unsafe garage or dangerous unsafe house?
Right now I have it as a dangerous and unsafe residence.
Okay.
And,
Any further questions?
No.
None.
Just kind of speechless.
yeah.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing abatement of unhealthy and unsafe exterior conditions at 414 South Wald Avenue Street and setting the date of September 27th, 2020 at 5:30 p.m. for a public hearing to consider condemnation as dangerous and unsafe.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item is consider adopting a resolution authorizing and providing for the calling of a special question election in the city of Independence, Kansas, for the purpose of submitting to the electors of the city the question of imposing a 1% citywide retailers sales tax and providing for the giving of notice of said election. Kelly?
This is pretty much the same language that you approved at your last meeting with the change on the Senior Citizen Center. I was concerned that there might not be enough funding to get that completely completed, which we hope it will be, potentially with grant funding or whatever partnering we can do with other entities. But I didn't want to create a situation where it was in there for some reason. If it didn't get done, then I don't want to create any ill will. We definitely can do some planning and some work on that to develop a plan on how that can be accomplished. And if there's a way we can accomplish it, we certainly would like to do that. Just made that slight change, added planning for a future senior citizen center. Worked with the bond attorney on that, and he's fine with it. I did send you the responses to all the questions you had asked previously, and so this is the language with the modifications highlighted. And so I don't know if you have any additional questions or...
The question that we had about the debt repayment, portion, if it could be used as a contractual obligation, and he confirmed as a contractual obligation it could be utilized.
Yeah, with the modification that he made to the
Right.
language, and you see that there is a modification. It doesn't say debt repayment anymore. It says debt financings, and that way you could utilize it for that.
So from what we discussed as far as wording, the 10th was in item A, the modification that allows it to be used for contractual obligations, and then
You
for
mean item
senior
B?
citizen system center planning for a future was added there. Those were the only.
Yeah, and the first one you mentioned was in item B, because item A is the
Oh,
mill
yes.
levy support, and then item E.
Right.
And we did take out the word required. I think we talked about that before on the ADA. It really wasn't necessary. Then Jeff brought that up. He gets a little confusion on who defines what's required and what's not. So we put related. Just
Right.
let the related in there.
And from our meeting the 10th, we had proposed some percentages for each of the item and asked that be reviewed. And from the data submitted in the packet, I see the percentages are as we discussed. So I have the assumption that we're good with that. So,
Yeah, and you can, Lacey wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know if you want to ask anything of her.
everything good, Lacey? Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments concerning this item?
Mayor, I'm satisfied with the adjustments to the language as presented.
And the percentages that we,
I am also in agreement with the percentages as presented.
Commissioner Yususi?
I'm in agreement also with that.
Then with that, I'll call for a motion.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing and providing for the calling of a special question election in the city of Independence, Kansas, for the purpose of submitting to the electors of the city the question of imposing a 1% citywide retailers' sales tax and providing for the giving of notice of said election.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passed. Okay, next item D is consider a change order with Graham Construction and Trans Systems for the 2020 overlay ADA curb ramps.
Mayor, Sean is here too. I made a mistake on this, and thank you for catching it. I forgot to add in the design and inspection fee of $28,740 some. So what the number you have in front of us is just the construction costs for Graham Construction. So with your permission, and Sean's here, we can bring that back next week with a contract or on-call, whichever you prefer, with a not-to-exceed amount.
Okay. Yeah, the ramps were based upon the cost presented in their bid for the current ADA project that's under construction.
Correct. We reviewed the overlay area and did a very firm calculation on quantities and then used the unit price data from the original bid.
And all these are the standard curb ramp.
Correct. There are a few places where there will be maybe 50 feet of sidewalk required to lower the elevation so that we can use standard curb ramps and not do any switchbacks or anything like that. So.
Okay. And the 28,720 was listed in the information we received at the last commission meeting, the 23rd. It was in, I think, the detailed breakdown and.
Yes, I think that was based on some data that we'd provided to the city some time ago, and we can look at that and come up with a firm number that's a not to exceed, but it'll be no higher than that amount. So.
Yeah. When I was visiting with Kelly and David about it, I thought instead of just an open end like the on-call, we really don't have a written on-call contract or procedure, that this is going in the direction that we would do, that if Sean would just write a not to exceed simple contract for this work, then we're all in agreement and have something documented for the file outlining the scope of work and extent. So tonight, what we are addressing is a change order for Graham Construction and only Trans Systems agreement will come to the next commission meeting.
So just strike the words "and Trans Systems" from the motion?
Correct.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
Okay, the motion is move to authorize the mayor to sign a change order with Graham Construction for the 2020 overlay ADA curb ramps.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item E, consider authorizing city staff to bid out connection to the sanitary sewer main in the 300 block of Westminster and assess the cost back to the property owners. Terry?
This is the sewer main we installed in 2013, and we have been trying to get, there was 9 homes. 3 of them have connected. We still have 6 that have not. We've been working with the property owners trying to get them to connect, and we're not getting much cooperation. So we thought maybe a way to go was bid this work out and then assess it back to the property.
Yeah, the history of the line was, it was a private line installed, and there were problems of infiltration with it, so that's why.
There's a tremendous amount of infiltration. The line is impassable. We can't get a rod up it or anything. It's in terrible condition, and we'd like to get it disconnected from our system. There's a new sewer main in the alley, and it's just a matter of taking the service lines out and connecting on. It's not a huge issue other than money, apparently, I would think if we assess it back to the property and maybe give them some time to pay it out, it would make it a lot easier for them.
Currently, if they desire to connect themselves, they would be able to fill out an application for assistance on these lines. Is that correct?
Yes.
But once it goes to bidding and the city bids for the work, then that option is eliminated, correct?
That's the way I would say it, yes.
Okay.
You could choose to have them fill that out and then deduct it from their balance, since they would have gotten that if they bid it out anyway. So I think you could certainly choose to do that.
But it would have to be their action to come.
Yeah, they would have to take the initiative to fill out the application. And we did send them the application when the letters were sent out and sent them the information. But we could send that to them again and then deduct that from whatever their share is, that they would be eligible based on, if they're income eligible or not. There's an amount you get even if you're not.
Is there a time limit that once the work is done, is it too late to apply, or once it's assessed onto the property?
I don't think any thought was given to a deadline for that. I would assume that city staff would be reasonable in their approach towards that.
Mm-hmm. It seems like the city staff has been extremely reasonable so far.
I would agree.
Okay. And Commissioners, do you have questions for Terry concerning the project?
Terry, you said the original sewer replacement line was put in the alley in 2013,
Yes.
correct? And the three houses that were connected to it were connected at that time, or have they been connected recently?
It was about 2 to 3 years when the first two were connected, and then the third connected shortly after that. They were experiencing problems at the upper end of that, and they realized they had to do it.
So they had an immediate need to
They
connect
had
because
immediate-
their sewer system had ceased to function, correct?
Yes.
So I'm just curious where the sewage from the other 6 houses is going if it's not connected to the sewer line.
Pardon me, I didn't.
Where's the sewage from the other 6 houses going, in your expert opinion, if they're not connected to the line?
It's going somewhere. We don't see it surfacing, but we're not exactly sure where it's going. And I know that the line is in bad shape because we get a lot of water when it rains. So
It's not going to the processing plant. You would be able to say with a great deal of confidence the sewer from those unattached houses is not going to the processing plant. The wastewater treatment plant.
Probably a good portion of it is, but who knows what's going out into the ground or in the neighbor's basement or You know, I don't
I
know.
see, because the residential or the private line is still in its, at some terminus, at some point connecting to the main, right?
The private line, yes, connects into our main.
Okay. I misunderstood that in 2013, the private line was disconnected when the other line was put in. So I
No, it was not
misunderstood
disconnected
that.
at that time.
I'm okay then that it's not
Trying
going
to work with
someplace
them
else.
to get them connected to it, and it's just kind of come to a head. We're not going to get any action out of them.
Thank you.
You might give the commission an idea what the cost is, because it's not necessarily cheap. Didn't one person say it was around 10,000 they had to pay?
Yeah, the costs are all over the place, and each house is different, and the connections are different. I know the one individual paid close to $12,000 to have theirs connected. From what I've seen and looking at these, I would think that we could get all of them done for around $5,000, $6,000 a piece. If you get one person to do all the work, there's some economy of scale there, so.
Yeah, they've had plenty of opportunity because this was discussed back in 2013. And they were informed then that they would need to connect, and it's 2020. And we're still having 6 houses that
Yes.
are not, actually not cooperating at all, so.
Well, they've been cooperative.
I mean, as
in
far as-
talking to us, but they.
As far as
there's
moving
just no
forward
action.
and connecting to the new
We
sewer
can't get
line
them
that's in
taking any
place.
action, so.
Right.
And, looking at each individual connecting is going to look at a higher price. That you put it as a package and go out and get multiple bids, the opportunity for the individual costs to reduce just in the number of people bidding it. So, it could be a cross of, it's not causing me any problem now, I'm not going to do it, or, if you look at $10,000 to $12,000, and even with our grant program, it's still a lot of money for
Yes.
a waste line, but by putting it as as one project and going to bid, that could affect the cost considerably, or hopefully considerably, to reduce it for all of them and be better than each one doing it themselves. If there's no further questions for Terry, then I'll call for a motion.
I have just one clarification. Kelly, you said something about it was within our jurisdiction or purview to leave the option open for them to apply for the grant?
Well, I would think it would. I mean, it's a policy that you put together, and if they were doing it on their own, they would qualify for that. So if you would give them that grant, if they paid for it, then if we bid it out, we'll have a cost per structure, what those costs are, because some are going to be different. And if they fill out the paperwork, I mean, Lacey, do you have an issue with that? No. I mean, because it is going to be expensive, and that would at least assist them some, but they have to be willing to fill the paperwork out and actually apply. But we do need to set a deadline for it, I think.
Well, I'm just wondering if this motion, in so making this motion, it disqualifies the 6 unattached homes from the grant. And if it does not, I'm ready to make the motion.
It was not our intention to disqualify them, was it?
That was not our intentions.
And if there's another motion that's needed at some future point, then
Or-
we can consider that
Yeah,
grant.
it doesn't say it disqualifies them or anything. I think once we get we're gonna send the letter out saying that we're gonna go ahead and bid out for it. Then once we get the bids and we have the amounts, then we can send them another letter and say, this is the amount of what your assessment would be. If you want to fill out this application for this program you have, and we'll give them so many days to do it. And then we can take that off that assessment, and then I suggest we do that over a 10-year period, the assessment.
Is the 10-year period something that's
It's been done before.
involved in this motion, or?
I think we deal with that, I think we can deal with that once we get the bids and we know the cost.
Okay.
Jeff, would that be?
Yeah, I think
Because
you see what the bids are and what's reasonable period of time to, because if it's 10,000 per property, that'd be a large assessment for one taxing period.
And we don't want anybody losing their house because that's why we'd like to spread it out. And if we could get them to apply and we could take that off and we want to do what we can to get this resolved.
once
Andy.
it bids, it'll come back to us for approval
Yes.
to accept the bids, and that we could set the time frame.
And then you'll have to formally assess, you'll have to adopt an ordinance assessing it, just like you do a nuisance or anything else.
Thank you. I look forward to that next step. And I'm ready to make the motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I move to authorize city staff to bid out connection to the sanitary sewer main in the 300 block of Westminster Place and assess the cost back to the property owners.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is to consider bids for Whiskey Creek drainage weed clearing. Mike?
We received bids on July 23rd for cleaning Whiskey Creek Drainage Way. There was only one bidder, and the bid was bid out in three sections, which were Pine Street to Laurel, Laurel to Walnut, and Walnut to Cherry. And I believe we discussed at a previous meeting to start at Cherry and work to the north. And that bid for that work came in at $84,000, which is $34,000 over the budget of $50,000. And I talked to the contractor, and as you can see on the map, $50,000 would take us from Cherry north to the UP spur that goes out the cement plant, which is just south of Birch, about a half a block.
Would it be possible to look at finding the additional $34,000 so that we could do it all in one phase?
I'll let Lacey answer that.
I think, we don't have a per foot or yardage or length to develop an analysis of how far that would go. And since we do have the block at a group
because
at 34.
This first section is probably the roughest section he's
Yeah.
going to have to do, and I can see why the bid was that.
If we could rob 34,000 from economic development or
So your,
special project funds or a little here and a little there.
your options with that, the short answer, yes, you can. We have funds budgeted in economic development for, for example, for incentives that we budget it in case it comes up. So yes, we could release that for this project, and then if something comes up where we need to expend additional funds, it would just require an amendment of the budget. So there is wiggle room there, just knowing that by doing this, we're giving something up at least temporarily to do this.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable doing the whole section since we had a fixed price to do that, Because, you know, when you go in and try and clean out something like that, every piece is a little bit different.
Right.
And to go arbitrarily to try and redevelop, you know, it's, is he going to lose, is he going to make, or just where are we? But we've got that fixed point that he said, I can do this for 84,000, and while he's geared up,
Right.
do it all.
Do it all at once.
Yeah. Commissioners?
I agree.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Okay. Any further questions for Mike on it?
Nope.
So then, what we'll look at the plan for the other two phases to bid again in 2021.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, then if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with Mega LLC to perform, in this case, it'll be $84,000 of drainage way clearing. This will be from Cherry North this will be to Walnut, would that be correct?
Right.
To Walnut, just leave it at that, to Walnut.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Next item on the agenda is consider setting the date of August 27th, 2020 at 5:30 PM for a public hearing regarding a CDBG grant. Kelly or Lacey?
I prepared it, but she's the CDBG pro lately.
Okay. Lacey?
This is the sewer one, correct?
Yes.
This is setting the date, or we're requesting that you set the date for a public hearing for a sewer, CDBG grant that we would like to pair with our upcoming sewer loan. I believe the projects in consideration are Basin 5 improvements and, do you remember the other one? I don't have it in front of me.
It is the Lakeview Lift Station.
Lakeview Lift Station, thank you. And this is just a requirement of the CDBG grant that we hold a public hearing as the first step.
Okay. This is some work that has been initially designed. It's kind of carryover, so we're just looking at now getting it under construction.
Yes.
So, and we were fortunate in some of the other work related to get some grants from it and really let us extend our dollars quite a bit. So, Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions for Lacey?
I do not.
Commissioner Yususi?
My question is, when would we find out when that grant would be awarded? What would the timeline be?
The deadline is
It's
September
September 25th is the
And so
deadline.
Sean, do you know the period?
It's usually in the spring, but I don't have.
Okay, okay. It's several months down the road.
Yes.
Okay.
If there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to set the date of August 27th, 2020 at 5:30 PM for a public hearing regarding an application for CDBG funds for sewer system improvements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. The next item on the agenda, item H, is consider providing direction for inspection and bidding services for sanitary sewer basin 5, Phase 2, and Lakeview lift stations that were previously designed by Trans Systems as part of a CDBG KDHE loan project.
Mayor and Commissioners, since this project was already designed by Trans Systems, we would like to go ahead and procure the inspection and bidding services for this piece that they designed. In visiting with Susan Gilmore with Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission, anything we can do to show that these projects are shovel-ready gives us readiness points, and she said she's seen 100th of a point put somebody over whether they get funded or not. These are very competitive grants. And so we want to do everything we can to get every point we can get. And so if the commission is receptive to that, then we will bring a contract back to the next commission meeting for that, those engineering services.
With the design work being completed, it does provide a lot more continuity on a project to have the designing engineer continue on with the bidding and the inspection of the project. To break the services at that point can create issues that would slow the work and cause problems later on in the project. So I think in situations like this, once we select a firm to do the design, we should continue with their services throughout. But Commissioners, your opinion, your questions concerning the item?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, with no further questions, then I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion, move to direct staff to present a contract at a future meeting with Trans-Systems for bidding and inspection services for sanitary sewer improvements to Basin 5, Phase 2, and replacement of Lakeview Lift Station.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item I, consider approval of a cereal malt beverage license for Ace and Gunner's Tavern at 112 South 25th Street.
We received this after the agenda deadline, and once we amended the agenda, we went ahead and added it on because they are wanting to open this weekend if possible.
Any questions, Commissioners?
I have none.
I'm good.
Then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve a cereal malt beverage license for Ace and Gunner's Tavern at 112 South 25th Street.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Item J, consider signing a coronavirus relief fund resolution to participate in the Spark Relief Fund. Lacey?
This is a resolution that the county has asked us to sign. It's directly received from the state. It's the same resolution that they signed to be a recipient of the Spark funds. So now they've passed it to us since we've been identified as a subrecipient of theirs, asking us to sign this. And it was prepared by the state attorney, or an attorney at the state.
Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding the resolution? Commissioner Yususi?
I do not.
Commissioner Hayes?
This would be necessary in order for us to receive any of the Spark funds. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, if there are no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to adopt the Coronavirus Relief Fund resolution as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried.
Mayor,
Yes.
could I ask for a 5-minute break?
Yes, you may. Do I have a second on the motion?
I second it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. We'll return at 8:03. Okay, we're back in session. Next item on the agenda is discussion. We've already conducted business on item A. Next item is discuss programming for city facilities. Kelly?
The update on the staff's part is, I told you previously that we had went through the programming submit revisions to Trainer, and I have confirmed we have a meeting with our admin team with Trainer next week on that piece. And then I also met with Commissioner Hayes, and I think he has some information for you.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I met with you previously, and I thought you had an update on where we're at on what we're looking at on the programming.
Sure, I'd be glad to share that. As we had spoken about, a cost-benefit analysis would include developing some costs of projected maintenance activity and ongoing maintenance needs for each of the two alternatives that I established, which was the continued development of the 1916 building, as well as the temporary City Hall building. While we know that Trainer is probably our source for that information within the 1916 alternative, that will probably extend their services beyond their current contract. So there'll probably be some cost associated with them to go ahead and develop cost projections on mechanical, electrical, those types of systems. So they are willing to do that for us, but it will take additional resources on their part, and so it will take additional cost on our part. With regard to the temporary City Hall, we do have some history because we have 4 years of occupancy. So we can develop some trend information with regard to cost, and we also have some expertise in-house because we have our own maintenance and systems expertise on staff that we could utilize to help us develop life cycle costs for some of the major systems there. So that has not been developed, but I believe it can be developed. So that is our progress to this point, and so we'll just keep working on refining those numbers.
Okay. Some of that on the temporary building, you might want to look at an MEP because you've got variable air volume boxes, intermediate controls, steam relief valves, and that to consider as maintenance on it that could be significant. And one thing you also, with the number of plumbing fixtures, when you look at total life cycle costs, there's a lot more, per fixture costs that the less a fixture is used, the more problems they develop and in the lines. So on the programming, do you have revised square footage areas projected or anything like that on modifying the program?
What we did is we went through each of the areas that were going to be in the 1916 City Hall, and we did make revisions. And then Trainer has preliminarily taken that information, and they've put together a kind of a plan based on that. And then we are going to go over that with them for the first time in our meeting next week. So that is where we're at.
Okay, because the limit of the renovation, everything has to fit within the existing square footage.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that's what they sent us to review that we're going to go over with them next week.
Okay, good. Okay, next item is reports. Item A, the gravel streets. Okay,
Yeah, that's a map of the gravel streets that are left inside the city limits, if you have any questions.
and did I see a note that this map excludes the gravel streets that we're addressing in
Right.
the overlay project?
Yeah.
So this is just the remaining
The remaining.
streets.
Those are future streets for you to consider.
So as we go each year with a paving plan, are you looking or considering eliminating some or reducing the number each year, or,
I'd like to, yes.
okay? Are some in the south part of town, are they in the flood property? Or are they all still active in residential areas?
They are in the flood zone, aren't
Like West Cedar, 19th to 17th, West Cedar, 16th to 17th, Lynn, 17th to South 18th,
they? No, I don't think the water got that high.
15th Street, Birch, dead end.
I'd have to look at it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
there's
we
no
can-
houses, and
Look at this one.
You know.
I've noticed that on
Kinda could get some.
the FEMA property on South 10th, there must be a drive that people are coming from the west part through a driveway over to 10th Street. They're cutting,
Yeah, there was a
Through that.
driveway there where all those trailer houses were,
yeah,
cutting through there, yeah.
they found a
Yeah,
shortcut.
they did.
Yeah,
Because that's where sanitation is. That one's in the floodplain.
Here's the.
that section on Cherry Street,
Whiskey Creek
that's the
follows the
approach to that
railroad.
bridge
Yeah,
that we were looking at
Right.
last
right,
time, isn't it?
Right. Mhm. Short piece there goes to the bridge.
There's several of them that are, Leonard, or several of them.
Yeah, and
I could get with Kelly this week and we could.
Well, I mean, we can turn on, I have this in our mapping system, and it's just a matter of turning the flood map on
yeah.
to see that, so.
If
I mean,
there-
I've got it on now, and there's some that are in, over there on Frontage Road, and over there by the sanitation, that's in the flood zone.
But are there any houses still around it?
There's one house on the north side of the overpass on 21st.
Okay.
On these that we were talking about on this West Cedar and that, are any of those areas where there's properties been removed due to some of those blocks are vacant, to where there's actually no houses on some of these that they have a gravel street, but there's no actually property on either side of that
On Cedar,
gravel street, on any of these streets down here?
there's some that have no houses. I know West Cedar from 18th to 19th, there's no houses there. They've all been removed.
Yeah, what I was wondering if, in long term, if there's no houses, do we want to really look at abandoning the streets, taking them out?
Good.
There's some maintenance and even some alleys on, between 10th and 8th Street. There's a couple
Two
alleys
alleys there.
and a partial of 9th Street. If you look at, if we're gonna have to maintain them, but they don't go anywhere.
Yeah, turn them back to grass.
Right, and it's an open area. They're using it for disc golf now, but, then you could open some recreational, just with
Sure.
it mowed, it gives more area and then cuts down all our long-term maintenance.
Sure.
So,
I asked for this information because I just, I didn't know where these were. And what's more, I didn't understand why the city had streets that weren't paved. So I went to the locations and I drove each of these streets, and I have a better understanding now why some of them are not paved. Some of them don't really connect to anything. They're not a through street. They're more of a, they serve as an alleyway perhaps, but they don't really serve as a connecting thoroughfare. And many of them don't have addresses facing the street, the dirt street. They have maybe a side yard that is on the dirt street side, but there aren't residences actually facing the street with a mail address. So possibly that's why they have been delayed in pavement. Some of them are literally one lane, like a two-track alleyway. So developing those into a street would be more difficult than just laying down blacktop. You would probably have to build up the road bed, and it'd be more expensive. And if it doesn't connect to something, if it doesn't improve traffic flow, if it doesn't develop an already undeveloped area, those kinds of things. So what I was hoping to do by my own education here is to get a better understanding of how to be an advocate for paving these. And perhaps what it convinced me of is that there may be more than one solution to these than putting a blacktop surface down, including maybe abandoning certain streets, that don't connect to something and that don't have houses on them. But also, on the other hand, to elevate those gravel streets that have quite a number of houses on them still, and get those paved next. You'd think the residents and the property values of those houses would be improved because they would be on a paved road henceforth. So I would say that moving forward, we probably would want to see the criteria associated with the choice to pave a gravel road and see whether it passes muster and actually does serve the greater good in some way. So thanks for developing this information for me, and I'll be utilizing it going forward to understand choices to pave those gravel roads, and perhaps understand why they haven't been paved thus far. So thank you very much.
One that does get a lot of traffic that might be one you might want to consider as a priority as we move forward is 21st from Laurel to Maple. That's the one that the sanitation trucks go down, and it's kind of a shortcut under the bridge. And it does have a lot of traffic. And I know when they did have that trailer park there, those poor people, they got all kinds of dust. But that is one that is used a lot.
That is actually one that David also indicated, because of its proximity to Whiskey Creek there, is also a possibility that it would have to be elevated because it would be otherwise flooded. So.
Yeah, it is in the floodplain.
Okay. Thank you.
And it depends on a public works building. The sanitation trucks could be rerouted too.
Right.
But this is good. And it kind of goes along, our discussion about the the study on road conditions, having outside firm that could log, because in that, we could look at traffic count and circulation to help us determine, even overlay if the base is adequate. No use putting asphalt if the base isn't stable enough. So that's really valuable. Thank you for doing that too.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, next item on the agenda of reports is 223 West Main Street update.
Bless you.
Nothing to report.
Yeah, that's kind of becoming a concern. I know you've done a lot to try and get the information. You've had a lot of communications prior, and it just dried up. Some of the things that were left unended, and David had brought up in letters concerning the, prior to the renovation, the city had paid for a structural engineer to evaluate the building for deficiencies and concerns relating to possible condemnation. And there's no record of what work was actually documented or approved by the structural engineer, and also structural modifications in the actual renovation were done with no structural drawings. And one of the things David had requested was letters certifying the project engineer on the drawing that he did review those and that the building is now safe. Without that information, no one knows if where an arch is falling, did you take it down and rebuild it, or did you tuck point it? So all the deficiencies in that initial report have never been documented. City funds were also used for the window upgrades, but there's windows on the east side that don't comply with code, that are fire safety issues, that David's requested information, and that's listed in the report by pool fire protection of how are you addressing those, plus then some egress issues from bedrooms that don't comply with the requirement of the 2012 IBC. So, this has been 2 months, 3 months, waited for a response.
Yeah, it's probably 2 months, isn't it, Kelly? Since we last month, definitely a month.
I think
Probably
the
two.
last communication was with some drawings. That might have been,
May,
yeah.
I believe so.
So, I think that the commission needs to be aware that David has requested the information, and there's significant concerns. It's not just dotting an I and crossing a T, but significant clarification of how work was done to guarantee that the building was stable, other than just, the joints were filled. So I think shortly, the commission might need to act to assist in getting the information from the contractor, and a lot of the answers are required by his licensed professionals.
So my question to you then, how are we going to go about by getting that information from him? We requested the information, and we're into another August, another year, and we're still not getting updated MEP drawings, information we requested, we're still not getting. So we have a building that basically sits with what apartments would be finished out or basically unusable because of deficiencies with the building. So how are we going to go about addressing that if he's not willing to comply?
Yeah, I think.
What are our methods that we can use?
I don't know if COVID has been an issue that has had delayed him in responding or what. I think, you know, the thing would be to, if by the end of the month, then send a letter requesting again for the information. And if it doesn't come within a short period, then look what options would be necessary. One, you know, where we gave city funds addressing the windows, and we find out that the windows aren't in compliant, and he hasn't responded to what needs to be done to correct it. You know, I think that might be something we might be forced to address. But no further questions. Thank you, David.
With that, one other question then. We extended the license to the brewery for 6 months, and then we'll review it at 6 months and continue to extend it out.
That's kind of a separate issue that like the sprinkler and some of the life safety relate to the whole building if the apartments are occupied.
Right.
Except the windows on the 3rd floor. Next item on the agenda is 2020 census update.
We're actually a little bit over 60% on the census response, but since they have shortened the time to respond, was going to be the end of October, now it's the end of September. We've got a really big push to get it done. So, and Lewis, can you take one of those and hand it down there? Sorry about that. So we ordered 2,500 door hangers to get those census tracts that are hard to reach, that we're having trouble getting responses. And we asked for volunteers to hang those. Okay, thank you. And we do have some volunteers, including Commissioner Hayes as well. And the good news is the meter readers happen to be reading on the south side of Maine. So we're going to be able to get several of those hung by our meter readers within the next 2 weeks. And then we're going to use volunteers to get the area north of Maine and some of the older neighborhoods and those census tracts that are harder to reach. And we're looking at probably about 700 residences in that area because the majority of the rest of them are on the south side. And so those are our efforts. We're trying to get a response. It's a lot of money that we could lose if people don't fill it out. We do have banners that we've put around town and things like that. And so we're trying to do what we can to get people to realize how important it is. And so that's what our efforts are currently.
If you already have these available, I could start, identify where I need to go. I could start tomorrow.
Actually, April is helping me organize that, so I will have her get a hold of you, and she's assigning an area to each of the volunteers so we don't overlap our efforts and don't go to the same place twice. And so I will, she is here, so we'll add you to the list, and she'll get you an area to cover and get you the door hangers. She has those.
I also have family members that are reaching out to the Hispanic community.
Okay.
Especially those that are very limited in English, and explaining to them. I've got on the website and explained to my family as to why they need to participate and how they can get on and fill out a census. And they have an actual hotline number where they can speak with someone in Spanish that completed. So
I can print out some materials if you tell me how many you need. I think I did that for Leonard early on too, because he had some. So that needed the Spanish material. So I can certainly get those printed out for you if you tell me how many you need, so that you can get those to those people.
Okay, I will check with my family and see how many they think they may need.
That would be great.
And get them distributed out.
We really appreciate it.
They've been calling those that they know.
Kelly, I completed my census online, and I didn't call the phone number.
Right.
When you call the phone number, about how long does it take you to complete the census? Have you an idea?
I did mine online as well, but they're just going to read the same questions that you do online, so I would anticipate it would take about the same amount of time.
I swear it took me 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was-
I don't know.
Yeah,
Couldn't have taken much longer than that.
right.
So it's really a very short amount of time that's invested in getting the information that's required.
And we tell people, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your kids, your relatives, your neighbors, because it may not be services that you need or realize you need, but maybe other people do. And we want to make sure that those services are available to them.
Are the hangars to blanket every house, or is it selected houses?
Well, we got 2,500, so we're going to do the entire south side and a portion of the north side that are in those areas. We have census tracts that show the response rates, and some of the census tracts have really low response rates. Up in the more northern part of the city, the country club area and all that, they have a pretty high response rate, so we're not doing it there. So it's kind of more the more older neighborhoods that have been established for a long time that we're having a low rates.
Okay. Next item is update on code enforcement efforts, item D.
David?
It did a minute. Micah, our IT guy, just brought this to my attention because sometimes IT guys are always missing, and he just brought it to my attention. I thought you guys would like to know, in the month of July, there were 630 grass violations. 130 of those were new, 250 were revisits, and the street department mowed 250 violations just in that month. And that's not talking about the environmentals that's going on and stuff, so. They're
Does
staying
that
busy.
include the abandoned lots?
That does not, most of the flood lots, Mike just automatically mows. Occasionally Aaron will, but
But like where we've raised a house?
that would pop up if it is not being taken care of, that would fall into this number.
Okay. Do you find that most of it is in abandoned houses, or are you getting some that the people live there are not maintaining their
It
lawn too?
is quite a few of residences, they just don't take care of the property. Yes, sir.
I have a question. It's not related to, it's code enforcement efforts, but it's not related to grass violations. But I have had a couple people ask me about cars that are sitting on property that are just sitting. They don't appear to be moved, and they don't appear to be tagged.
Right. We do enforce that, and so please let us know where they're at, and we'll make sure to get the process going. We developed that code last year to where we can remove it, so.
And if they're on the street, the police department takes care of them. If they're on private property, they're handled through code enforcement.
Yep.
Okay.
So-
I think these are on private
Yep.
property, not on the street. But
Yep. We
I'll
do
try
have
to
a
get you list.
difficulty now since we lost the place down on Cement. There's really no place to take vehicles, but, so it makes it somewhat more difficult sometimes to get them removed, but, because
Yeah.
the wreckers are kind of just stuck with them, so. Just something
Okay.
we're working through.
And
All
we
right.
do ask people to be patient, because with 250 mow work orders in addition to everything else they're mowing,
Yeah.
it sometimes takes them a little while to get there. So,
On the mowing?
yes.
Yeah,
That's a lot of lots.
that is.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item, item E, city board minutes. Commissioners, do you have any questions concerning any of the minutes?
I do not.
I'm good.
Okay, city manager comments.
I don't have anything tonight.
You have none?
No.
Okay. Next item then is commissioner comments. Commissioners?
I have nothing.
I have none, Mayor.
Okay. Public concerns, we had none submitted. Okay, the next item is executive session. I move that we recess for an executive session for review and discussion of city manager applications pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume at 8:50 and in the Civic Center Memorial Hall. Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Yeah, if I'm gonna walk, I might as well start hanging tags. I can walk all over the place. So.
We need to extend for another 10 minutes, which would make it 9 o'clock. So I make a motion, we extend executive session till 9 o'clock.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried. Okay. We're back in session. There's no action to be taken from executive session. So with that, I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion adjourned, or meeting adjourned.